This is the Oklahoma Talking Company.
Welcome to the show, my friend. Thanks for coming round again.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are tonight's entertainment.
Hey everybody, welcome to the OKC Show. I'm Jason Baffrey, I'm your host, and looking forward to another great program with you today. And I am honored to have with me in the studio a gentleman that I've had the great pleasure of meeting over the past, and getting to know over the past year or so. And you've seen a lot in the news recently about the police and all kinds of things, negative, positive, and we're not going to get into that. But this guy, if he is any representation of the police in Oklahoma City, and he is, we are blessed in this city to have a great department and some great officers. And it's just been my pleasure to get to know Lieutenant Wayland Cubit, who is the supervisor of the F.A.C.T program and the truancy department for the Oklahoma City PD. And Wayland, welcome to the OKC Show.
Thank you, Jason. I enjoy being here. I like hanging out with you anytime I can.
Now, this is actually the first time I've seen you in uniform, and you're kind of intimidating.
Well, don't be intimidated. I know you're probably trying not to text and drive or anything like
right.
that. But
yeah, well, that's a whole other thing. Jeez. I'm concerned about that whole deal now, too. First of all, Wayland, let's talk a little bit about the F.A.C.T program. Explain what it is so people understand.
Well, F.A.C.T is an acronym, and it stands for Family Awareness and Community Teamwork. And the reason we call it that is because it's a unit of police officers that want to make families aware of the dangers of gangs, the dangers of kids getting involved in delinquency activity or disruptive behavior. And then community teamwork is after we make families aware of that, we want to serve as a team member with the community trying to address those issues and find things and positive things for kids to do. So F.A.C.T is just an acronym that means family awareness and community teamwork.
And this is something a lot of people may not realize, that the Oklahoma City Police Department takes this focus. And this is not going out and arresting gang members and things like that. You guys are working with the youth of the community, some of them troubled or coming from bad situations, but you are helping them along. You're mentoring them. You've got some great programs in place, some events that you do. And you guys are just really doing some great things and a completely different approach that I think most people might imagine that a police department would take with gang members or potential gang members.
Right. What we realized as a police department years ago, and many police officers and many police departments across the country know this, but just how do we address it? We know that we're never going to be able to arrest our way out of criminal behavior or gang involvement, that type of thing. We know that just arresting does not solve the problem whatsoever. So what we thought is that we would use the wisdom and experience gained as a police officer to identify kids that are hanging out with the wrong crowd, or maybe just headed down the bad road. Not necessarily they're in gangs or anything, but they make themselves susceptible to that kind of lifestyle based on who they're hanging out with. There's the risk factors in which they grow up in, all those kind of things. So we know as officers how to identify those kids pretty early, but we had no mechanism to actually deal with them until we created this program.
How long has the F.A.C.T program been in place?
Well, we started exploring and piloting the program in 2007. It was, at that time, it was an army of one, me. Mm-hmm. And so we started out talking to different faith-based organizations, finding out what was going on, what the needs were for our youth in the areas, northeast side predominantly, and then on the south side predominantly. That's where we have the highest concentration of gangs in Oklahoma City. So we wanted to kind of work in that area. So 2007, 2008, we kind of worked on that. It took off. The community was very helpful and very supportive of our effort. And so shortly thereafter, I became two. We got another officer to help me, Lieutenant Jermaine Johnson. And then two became four. And so now we have 4 officers, myself as the supervisor, and we operate out of 2 community centers. One at the Northeast Community Center, which is at 1220 Northeast 33rd, which is right behind Northeast High School. And the other one is at I forget the address, 3916 South Lindsay, right off of Lindsay Street on the south side of Oklahoma City.
Yeah. Now, in 2007, when this came about, was this something that you came up with, or something that the higher-ups said, hey, we want to do this, and Wayland, you're our guy, and here you go? How did that come about?
Yeah, kind of interesting. I was working undercover street crimes, narcotics and things, and working in my church with youth and doing community events and that kind of thing. The chief of police, Chief Bill City, called me to his office and said that he wanted to do something in the area of gang prevention. He had a lot going on with suppression and intervention with our street officers, but we didn't have anything prevention-wise, and we didn't really have a way for the community to really volunteer with the police department other than some of the traditional things. Really just call and tell us what you know, and we'll try to keep you anonymous, and we will do that and respond to what you tell us. But now here's a way that the community can actually join hands with the police department and mentor and work with us on events and support our kids in our effort, as a group, as a team member.
Yeah. And let's back up a little bit. Where are we right now in Oklahoma City? I mean, you say a gang problem, and you talk about gangs, and that's not something that most people may not be aware of. We may hear rumors or see, documentaries here and there, and talk of gang banging. And I think when you think about gang activity, you think bigger cities than Oklahoma City. But I know that there's been an issue here for a long time, but it's not at the forefront of most people's minds, I don't think, unless they live in the specific neighborhoods.
Right.
Perhaps.
We're about in Oklahoma City. We're about in our fourth generation of gangbanging in Oklahoma City. We're between 5,000 and 6,000 documented gang members in Oklahoma City currently. That's spread out over 638 square miles, but they're kind of concentrated in the inner city predominantly. It's predominantly African American and predominantly Hispanic in its membership. And we probably have about a representation of about 100 different gang sets in Oklahoma City. So I know it's not the buzzword for media right now, but it is definitely something on the radar of the police, and something that we like to keep a hand on and try to keep intelligence on and try to keep it from becoming kind of a cancer in our community. We know what gangs, if allowed to breed or to exist without any kind of suppression whatsoever or any kind of prevention whatsoever, they can actually do a lot of harm to a community. And so we have gang units on 3 shifts, and then we have our Police Athletic League, and we have the F.A.C.T program, and we're just trying to do our best to be really proactive in keeping gangs out of our schools, gangs off our street, and from affecting the common good of our community. Yeah.
What ages are you getting the most of, or what even is the age range that you're running into on the streets that are active gang affiliated?
Well, your most active, your most violent, your most dangerous gang members are going to be, young adults, between, 17 and maybe 25, 30 years old. But now we see them, if you were asking me what's the youngest gang member I've seen, I've seen gangbanging as young as 9 and 10 years old.
Wow.
Our kids actually affiliating themselves with a particular gang set at 9 or 10 years old.
Yeah, it's just amazing to me. I know you've had a lot of time to ponder this over the years and have probably some factual information and some speculation, but what leads to that gang activity for young men and young boys to get jumped into a gang and do that sort of thing, or look at that as a way of life?
Well, Jason, let's just face the facts. We're in about our 40th year of gangbanging. So we literally have kids that are being born into particular gangs. They don't have to get jumped in anymore. My dad was this particular gang member. My dad's dad was a particular gang member, and it's just a natural progression of things that I do the same thing. And so a lot of the kids are just taking on what their family tradition, right? You'll see a lot of tattoos. Sometimes it says 4th generation, 3rd generation. And so that's one way. But the other thing is that gangs often feed off the needs that are not being met from particular youth in our community. So where there's no needs being met, they just fill in those gaps, and a lot of times those needs are being provided by unhealthy families, by the family.
Yeah.
And all the gang needs to do to lure or entice or is to provide what's missing in those kids' lives. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that's where the dysfunction is. And they feel attached because this becomes their family. And that's the bond.
What kind of response do you get from the youth that you interact with? I mean, what's their response to the program and what you're doing? I mean, you roll up as a police officer and you're like, hey, we're gonna hang out with you and we're gonna do some fun stuff and go play basketball or do this. I mean, how do they respond?
Well, in uniform, it's not that good. The uniform is definitely a barrier. It comes with a lot of preconceived ideas about, what we are or who we are. A lot of times the police have not been real good to their families. They've seen uniformed police officers take their mothers and fathers to jail. And quite frankly, when police show up, it's always a bad situation. So our unit, the guys that work in our unit are not in uniform. They're in plain clothes. They drive plain cars. And they just try to, first and foremost, don't try to hide the fact that we're police officers, but we try to reveal who we are and try to keep police work is what we do.
Yeah, you're humans first.
We're humans first, right? And so we let them know that we care about them, that we have kids ourselves, that we go to church and we play and we care about what happens to them. And we really just treat them just like our own kids. And we treat them like family. And we take that same model. If we see that they have needs and they're suffering in certain areas, we do our best to fill in the gaps. We try to be the family for them, and that's the hook. So the kids honestly do not care whether we're white or black or we're cop or whatever our job is. They really just kind of ascertain whether we care or not. They don't care where we are, who we are. They just care that we care, and they know it pretty quick.
Yeah, we had Carrie Sowers. John and Carrie Sowers are friends of ours, mutual friends, and the Mentoring Project is an organization that we, as the OKC Show, Oklahoma Talking Company, love and support. And we attended the PLACE conference recently, and you were there and spoke. And I know you're connected with the Mentoring Conference, and you have this great personal story, kind of in the early days of how you've helped a young man. And can you share that with us now?
Yeah. Well, as the story goes, I don't even know where to start. But I met a kid in my church. This is about the same time the F.A.C.T program started. I was working in my church as the youth director, and a kid named Willie attended regularly. But Willie was one of those kids that kind of got on my nerves because he carried himself like a gang member. And as my work as an undercover police officer, I became to just kind of despise gang members. I saw the destruction in our community. I saw the violence that they did. I saw the intimidation that they did. And I saw that my work as a police officer was to kind of be that buffer between them and the community. And at church, at these youth groups and these youth meetings, Willie kind of rubbed me as that kind of person. So I found myself kind of judging him, really based on my experience on the streets. But rather than treat Willie bad, I had to really be friendly with Willie because he was a leader in our youth group. And if anybody that works with youth and work with youth groups, you have a couple of standout kids that how they go. Third day that's how your group is going to go that day. And so I kind of talked to Willie a lot, hung out with Willie a lot, and kind of try to figure out what kind of day we were going to have in the group because however Willie was feeling was how this group was going to be. But as it happens, I was still working undercover at the time, and one day I went to go do a undercover drug buy at a crack house, and as I made my approach, I noticed that Willie was actually working at this drug house.
And approximately how old is Willie at this point?
Willie at this time was 12, 13 years old.
Okay.
Right.
And does he know that you're a police officer?
He does. Okay. He does. And I think he knows. I didn't really hide it, but I never wore a uniform to church or anything like that. So I'm pretty sure he knows, but it's not the kind of thing I want to take a chance at. So instead of walking up to the house, I just walked by the house and I informed my team members that I can't do it. And the reason why I couldn't do it is because we may be blown if I walk up there and that kid recognizes me.
Right.
So I insisted on that we still make a case on this house if there's one available, and we did. So we sent another undercover officer in. We we got the evidence. We needed to get a warrant, and we went back to serve the warrant. I was really intent in changing Willie's mind about gangbanging and selling drugs and that lifestyle, and I thought that my capacity as a police officer would really change it. So I asked that, hey, let me go in the door first, and let me get Willie, and I'm going to teach Willie a lesson. And so, sure enough, we kick in the door to serve our search warrant, and sure enough, Willie he's there. He's the front at the door, and I grab him and I throw him to the ground, and I'm masked up. I've got my raid mask on, and I handcuff him, and I'm really rough, and I'm yelling and screaming. I'm trying to make this as scary as possible. And I know you've never been in a drug raid, but they're pretty scary. But they're pretty scary.
I can imagine. That's why I try to stay away from them.
Right. So anyway, I take Willie outside. I reveal myself to him, and he's crying, and I'm fussing, and he's crying, and I'm fussing, and I go ahead and arrest him anyway. Even though I kind of know he's a good kid, I know he's very smart, I know his leadership potential, but I wanted him to get the full effect of the consequences of his decision to be a gang member and to sell dope and that kind of thing. So we sent him on to juvie jail, and I thought, I felt pretty proud about myself, honestly. I thought, that's one kid that knows my heart because he seems to be at church, and he knows the discussions I have at church, and then he also knows that I ain't going to play, and that the law doesn't play, and that this is bad, and I just gave him all the consequences. But over the next couple of years, Willie didn't get better, and Willie never came back to church. Willie got worse and worse and more involved in the gang activity. And I know that because I was doing drug investigations and gang investigations, and I hear his name, and I hear street name over and over and over. And so I was really discouraged that my mean hand, my tough hand didn't really affect Willie the way that I thought it would. Mm-hmm. It actually made him worse. I don't know if it made him worse, but he didn't get better. Yeah. And so I just kind of gave up on him as a lost cause, and we'll see him in prison one day, or like most gang members, he'll end up in prison, or he'll end up dead or strung out on drugs, and he'll just be one of those statistics that we lose. Well, as the story goes, I see Willie. I went to go pick up my son at his school, and I see Willie at bus loading. All the kids are leaving school, and I see Willie, and I just heard about him in a gang investigation. So I knew he wasn't in school. At least I thought he wasn't. So I got out of my car and I approached Willie and I grabbed him and I said, "You're trespassing on school property because you don't go to school here." And he goes, "No, I go to school here and I actually play football here." I said, "Willie, you and I both know you gangbang. You don't go to school." And he said, "No." He says, "Cubit, I go to school here. I'm trying to change." And I said, "Okay, well, we'll see about that." And I called the school officer over, and the school officer confirms his story. He's a school student there. And so I go, "Okay, well, I got my eye on you." And I did. Every single time I checked on my son at school, I checked on Willie, and I checked on my son a lot. And so I was checking on Willie quite a bit. And so Willie and I began to talk a lot. We began to text. We began to communicate. I checked on his grades. He showed me some of his work. And through this, I ended up taking him home a few times, taking him out to eat, and this was an unofficial, official mentoring relationship. He hung out with me and my son on our outings, and I learned that he was living with his girlfriend and his girlfriend's mom. His dad was nowhere to be found, and mom was having her personal struggles. Mm-hmm. And so this is where he lived. And I didn't agree with it, but I couldn't do anything about it. And I knew at some point the adult in me, knew that was going to come to some kind of end somehow, some way. Sure. And it did. And so he got into an argument with his girlfriend. And, of course, an argument with the girlfriend is an argument with mom, right? And so he was going to have to find another place to live, and he was going to go to the streets. And I already knew what that meant for him. He could survive. He knew how to do it. So after talking to my wife, and we just decided that we would give him a place to live. So Willie became my first foster kid, and he came to live with us. And so
now this is a kid that you have. You gave him a piece of your mind. You arrested him. You really kind of had a bad taste in your mouth about him in general in the beginning. And here you are making the decision to invite him into your home and be, for all intents and purposes, your son, son.
Yeah. Well, Jason, those judgments that I made about him were as I didn't know him. Yeah. I didn't know him. and he didn't know me. And had he known I was a police officer, he would have had the same feelings about
Right.
me, kind of thing. So as I got to know him and as he got to know me, what we did in the past really didn't matter. I saw the potential in him. I saw what he could be and what he could do. And I actually prayed about it. I prayed years ago that I wanted to be a servant and I wanted to do whatever God asked me to do. But as the joke goes, God has a sense of humor. So now all of a sudden you have a cop and a gang member that are not looking at each other as cop and gang member, looking at each other as father and son.
Yeah.
And so
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And what happened? That relationship went on. He lived with you.
Yeah, he lived with me. He's 20. I guess the father should know his son's birthday. I don't remember his birthday, but he should be 23 years old now. He lives in Arizona and he has 2 kids.
Wow.
Right, and so he had to leave here because of the pressures of his past lifestyle.
Sure.
But I completely support that, and we talk and text on a regular basis.
Yeah, and he's in a good place, good direction, and
sounds like it to me. Yeah, sounds like it to me. Yeah,
that's amazing. And you and your officers that work with you on the F.A.C.T program, you do a lot of different types of programs. You try to engage with in the lives of not just young men, but young women also. You have young women, and I had the pleasure of coming to one of your events earlier this year that you did, and it was just really cool. And talk a little bit about some of the things that you do and how you guys are reaching into the lives of these young people.
Yeah, the one that it's kind of cool that you got to come out and visit. We do a lock-in for 20 girls, and then we do a lock-in for 20 young men, and we select them in various ways. But we try to get inner city kids that our officers see leadership potential in, and we lock them in for 24 hours. And for the guys, we call it Man Up. And for those guys, for 24 hours and different events and games and speakers and workshops, we talk about what it means to be a real man. So for 24 hours, these guys learn how to tie a tie. They learn about teamwork. They learn about their capacity to help one another in various ways. The girls do the same thing. They call it We Rise. And so for 24 hours, we bring in all these different professional people, powerful speakers, and we put together these workshops that just inspire these young ladies to rise together, to work together, to break the mold of what the media and social media might be telling them, and teach them to kind of stand up as strong, independent women that support each other.
Yeah. It was really amazing, my experience there, and seeing the response of these young people, both the girls and the boys, just how well they responded to the mentors that were there and the speakers that were there. And it was, you guys don't hold back. You talk about some true things that I don't think kids aren't going to hear in school if they're going to school, and kids aren't going to hear necessarily in church. And it's the opposite of what they're perhaps going to hear on the street or from their friends. And so it was really impactful, and I could see the impact that it had on the kids. I was there for the guys when they got to go around and say kind of what the weekend or the night had meant to them. And it was so inspiring to hear their response and see the impact that you and the other people that were involved in the Man Up event for that particular one, the impact that they had. And it wasn't just like, hey, we had a great time and playing hoops was cool. This was like, I've learned something here, and this makes me want to change my life and change the direction, or I see the value in myself or the value in my family that I've never seen before. Things like that. Things that, could really change the course of their lives. And I know these aren't, those kids were some that you've been working with for a while, that you've built relationships with.
Some of them. Yeah. 4 or 5 of them we knew, and others we just invited.
Okay.
And one of the kids that we just invited, incidentally, just hearing you talk about that, I remember one of those impact statements. And that kid has gone on to OU. He's a freshman at OU right now. And he called me at about 9 o'clock one night. No, 7 o'clock. Yeah. One night.
Okay.
In a panic. He was in a panic, and he called me Lieutenant Wayland. He said, Lieutenant Wayland, I'm on my way to an event, and I know how to tie the tie. I'm walking over there now. He says, but I cannot get the length of my tie right. And I know you showed us. I'm not tripping. I can do it. But why I can't get the length right? I've been working on this for 30 minutes. And so I talked him through it, and he got it. And he sent me a picture on Instagram of what he looked in his tie. And he never tied a tie before man up. He never tied a tie before man up. And now he was in college, and he didn't call his dad. He didn't call an uncle. He didn't call his homies from back in the school. He called a police officer who he identified as his Lieutenant Wayland to help him do something in a social setting that had nothing to do with law enforcement or law or him being in trouble or any of that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of the reason why we did. And our officers and our mentors that we assigned to work with us, and that they give stories like that all the time.
Yeah. Is there any way that you can gauge the impact that you're having? I mean, are there any numbers that, or how do you gauge it? How do you look at success for the F.A.C.T program?
There's departmental success, and yes, I have to produce those numbers. How many kids did we contact? How many did we offer to the program? How many stayed in the program? That type of thing. How many police contacts did they have before they came in the program, and how many do they have after? How many times are they being suspended? What their grades are? Those type of things we try to track. But what makes it successful for me is every one of those officers are being able to connect to an individual that can say, this kid we impacted by this or that. I see the impact the other day when just yesterday when there was an accident that happened at 23rd and Penn, and a fight happened right after the wreck, and I pull up in my police car, and it had just happened. So I'm cleaning up the mess, trying to talk to people, and this kid runs across 23rd and Penn, and he runs up to my police car in the middle of all of this and wants to tell me, hey, I saw you over here. I wanted to speak to you. I was in the F.A.C.T program. I used to go to the Northeast Center and hang out with you. And I go, yeah, I remember you wanted to be a police officer. He says, yeah, but I changed that now. I want to be a CIA, FBI.
Wow.
And I said, well, do you know any CIA, FBI agents that love you? He goes, no, but I know 4 or 5 police officers that love me. And I said, well, maybe you ought to try working for this police department and back me up someday, And he said, yeah, maybe so. And he ran off. I don't remember kids when I started this police department running up to greet police officers while they did their work.
Yeah, that's just really great.
Right. And so to me, that's success. And I can tell you, I cannot walk into a gym in an Oklahoma City school where kids don't greet me. I don't care if I'm in uniform or if I'm hanging out with my kids. I see the officers that work in this program. They go to wherever we are when we're out to eat. If we see kids, these kids know them by first name.
Yeah.
Know them by first name and are not afraid to come up and greet them. And we just hope and we're talking about leadership and respecting authority right now in our character lessons. And so we're teaching them just because they wear a uniform, they're people too. They just have a job to do. Right. And so the kids in our program that hang with us, they learn that. And that's how I gauge success. I got to give the numbers, right? And the numbers sometimes doesn't look good. We have a lot of kids that we talk to that doesn't gravitate to our program or stick with our program. So if we just look at the numbers, it may not look like we're getting the most bang for our buck, but the stories and the relationships are what's paying off for me.
Yeah. What to you is the value of mentorship in these kind of relationships? I mean, explain how that kind of impacts you and impacts the people that you work with.
Well, I've experienced it, and so you'll hear me say this time and time again. Our program, you could call it whatever you want to call it. And there's tons of programs out there. I've seen, just since 2007 when I started this program, I've seen a lot of great programs come and go. But programs don't change people. People change people. And in order for us to change people, in order for us to get them to be inspired to take hold of and ownership of their own success, it takes relationship and mentoring, showing them that I'm a person. I have struggles that I've had to overcome, and you can do it. And this is how, right? And so you can do that with friendship and accountability, right? So the best mentors are good friends, they're good leaders, but they also hold their mentees accountable. And that's what we're looking for in our officers. Our officers hold not only their mentees accountable, but we hold each other accountable to do the kind of things, to be the kind of leaders that they can look up to in and out of uniform.
Yeah, that's great. What are the next steps, if you will? Are there next steps? I mean, are you guys in a place where you feel like you're doing what you need to do and you have what you need to have, or are there? Would you like to escalate things or increase the number of officers? What are you looking at down the road?
Right. Well, we really want to make sure that every kid we contact has a mentor, and although the officers are mentoring, they can't mentor all the kids that we reach. Right. So we want a steady bank of healthy, positive, caring adults that we can link these kids with. We want to be able to put more kids in our programs, which means maybe we need more officers, but maybe we need just more committed volunteers. So right now the push is to kind of link more with a variety of faith-based organizations, so that we can have that variety available for our kids when it comes to mentoring and events. So all these faith-based organizations are already doing really, really cool events. So I don't think it's necessary for us as a police department to keep creating new events to engage with youth. But if we can partner with the right faith-based organizations all around town, then once we meet kids, we can link them with those faith-based organizations, and they can begin to nurture and mentor and care for those kids just as well as we could.
Yeah. How can people find out more about the program or get involved? I mean, do you have a sign up if people want to become mentors connected to the F.A.C.T program? Well,
right now, if they want a mentor, we ask that they go through the mentoring project, get the training that they offer. And also, you can also get to us to Big Brothers and Big Sisters. They also are aware of how to link specific mentors to the F.A.C.T program. Also, our website at the police department is under construction, so we're going to be having a link when you go to the Oklahoma City Police Department's website to F.A.C.T, and so you can also refer kids to our program. You can also find out more about the presentations that some of our officers go out and do. We do presentations for community groups about what we do and the lessons that we teach kids, and we do some anti-gang presentations for different schools and church groups. But you can ask for them, request those through our website once we get it running. But until then, you can email me, or we can call 297-1174 and get our secretary, and she'll get the information to me and the officers about what's needed and what you want. That's great. Wayland, you've been doing this for 8 years now. Are you still loving it? And I don't get to spend as much time with kids as I like. I'm doing a lot more administrative stuff because I also supervise the truancy unit and things, but I still love the impact that I see being made. I love meeting new people so that I can create opportunities and have resources for our kids when needed. So that's what I'm doing more so now. I do miss just plain old hanging out with kids and doing some mentoring trips and things like that, but it's getting done, so I'm excited about it. Yeah, that's great. Well, Lieutenant Wayland Cubit has been our guest today on the OKC Show. He's the supervisor for the Oklahoma City Police Department F.A.C.T program. And again, just thank you so much for what you're doing, your heart in the way that you approach it. Again, I hope more stories about your program and other programs like this from around the United States maybe come out and start overshadowing the negative press that police departments are getting right now from a lot of the media, because you guys are doing some great things, and it's just such a pleasure to know you and to have you in here and be able to share the story of the F.A.C.T program. And again, if you want to get more information about the F.A.C.T program or sign up to become a mentor, you can do that, as he said, going through the mentoring project, their program to become a mentor, and you can look at thementoringproject.com to find out about that. And Wayland, one more time, just give me your email and phone number. Okay, my email is Wayland, WAYLAND.Cubit, CUBIT, at okc.gov, and you can contact me at 297-1174. All right. Wayland Cubit, we're going to go out and take a ride in the police car now. And thanks, everybody, for listening to the OKC Show. You can find us, of course, at Oklahoma Talking Company, oklahomatalking.co. Be sure and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Oklahoma Talking. And go like our Facebook page, Oklahoma Talking, and the OKC Show. That's all the time that we have for today. I'm Jason Baffrey. We are out of here.
The OKC Show is a production at Destiny Creative.